Hello, guys. So, if you're watching this, that means that you should have already read Act One and listened along with the audio book I provided. So, after that, I'm going to kind of go through and hit some highlights of some important things, and you can add these things to your annotations. So, beginning with our first scene, I want to talk about how we are kind of starting in the middle of a conversation. So at the very beginning of the play, you have Rodrigo and Iago, and they are in the middle of this conversation where Iago has just told Rodrigo that Desdemona and Othello have run off to get married together. So, eloped, if you will. So that's what we start with. And Rodrigo is upset about this, and Iago is upset about this, and they're talking about it. And here is our first place where we get Iago talking about why he hates Othello and how he wants revenge. So first, an important thing to know, kind of summary wise, is that Iago talks about how he is upset at Othello because Othello is gave the job that he wanted to Cassio. And in we kind of see one thing he's upset about is that Cassio is, I'm going to highlight here. Um, let's use this kind of highlighter. He is mere prattle without practice. So with that, I would probably make a note. One, there's some alliteration there. It's emphasizing this point without alliteration. But Cassio is prattle without practice, meaning Cassio is like he's someone who knows a lot of things. He calls him bookish, but he has never set a squadron in the field. Cassio hasn't. Versus Iago, who he says that Othello has seen him. His eyes had seen the proof at Rhodes, at Cyprus. Like Othello has seen Iago in battle, yet Cassio has never been in battle. He only knows the books. So basically, what Iago is mad about is Cassio gets this job over him, and Cassio is better educated but doesn't have the experience. And Iago thinks he should have this. And I think this is important to establish the play because Iago, I don't know, I kind of see it as connected to some things today. Like if you think about manufacturing jobs, like jobs that people that can really good jobs that people can get without a super high education, and how those jobs are disappearing. And then people who it's usually, you know, lower like not college educated men have these jobs, and then when they disappear they can become really angry and upset that this livelihood was taken away from them, and that the newer jobs are going to more highly educated people, or just different kinds of people, and tend to lash out at different people because of that. So here we have this. Iago is mad that this more highly educated, also kind of Cassio's a guy. I told you he was kind of like a ladies' man, smooth talker. He's also kind of just well liked, popular, and he got this position rather than Iago, who has proven himself, he says. So Rodrigo says, well, if you hate him, then why are you doing this? And so Iago says, it looks like I've made some notes here. Iago says, I follow him to serve my turn upon him. So in this line, basically this whole monologue here, which I'll talk about in a second, he is saying that I am kind of like my keep my friends close, keep my enemies closer. Like I am going to stay following Othello so that I can get revenge. So one note you definitely should make, I already have here, make a note about monologue. So this is a monologue, which is when one character is speaking at length to another character, so going on and on. And one thing we probably want to know about monologues, monologue is a drama term that we can use when we're talking about literary devices or rhetorical devices. We can also talk about drama devices. And when we're thinking about AP writing and AP literature, we want to start using those kind of terms when we can. and we want to talk about the function of them. So if I were going to talk about this monologue, let's say in an essay, then I might say Iago uses or Shakespeare uses Iago's monologues to reveal his character. The function of this monologue is revealing Iago's character. So here, Iago reveals his character through this monologue where he's talking a lot. And he is saying that I'm getting my revenge, but he also says something a little more important here. I think these last lines here that I've highlighted, um, I am not what I am. So Iago is saying that he is going to act loyal to Othello, um, but on the inside, he's not. He's doing it for his own purposes. And so this line, I will wear my heart upon my sleeve for daws to peck at. If you've ever heard that phrase, wear my heart on my sleeve, that comes from this play. And it is about this idea that if you wear your heart on your sleeve, then you're showing your true colors, I guess, and saying, one day I will do that. Um, but right now, I am not what I am. And he talks about this, like, there are lots of people who have, like, bosses, who the people who are, whether they're slaves or whether they're, servants, whatever, that they're very loyal. He calls them knee-crooking knaves, duteous and knee-crooking knave. So, like, knee crooking, if you watch Game of Thrones, like, the idea of bend the knee. So, like, these are people who bow, who are very loyal. And he says even when they're loyal, then they still end up getting fired. They still end up like there's no benefit to being loyal. But he says there are other people who have forms and visages of duty, visages meaning like a facade or a fake face. They seem loyal, but really they keep their hearts attending on themselves. They're really just in it for them. And he says that's who he is. So that's a pretty famous line there, that I am not what I am, that shows who he is, basically. And then, then we get into this plan that starts the action of the play. And we also see our first kind of racialized comment. So Rodrigo uses this term thick lips to talk about Othello. And so that is like a racialized term that he's trying to use there. And this is interesting because they have some kind of legitimate complaints against Othello, like not enough to do anything about, but like Rodrigo's upset because took the girl that he likes, and then Iago's upset because Othello gave someone else a job, so they're mad at him. But instead of sticking to what they're mad at him about, Rodrigo slips in this racialized language, so we can see that he is starting to kind of use his race, use Othello's race in these actions against him. So Iago has this idea, that we are going to call up her father. We're going to yell up at Brabantio, Desdemona's father, and we're going to wake him up, and we're going to make sure that he knows that this is happening. So in doing that, um, he actually said some interesting things. He actually is kind of saying that this is a good thing, that Othello's marriage to Desdemona is a good thing. So, for instance, when he's saying that we should call up her father, says I'm gonna poison his delight. Delight being the key word there. Though he in a fertile climate dwell, a fertile climate being a good climate, though he has a good thing happening, though that his joy be joy. So he's saying that even though this is actually a good thing, what we are going to do is we're going to make it seem bad. We're going to poison the delight. We're going to plague his fertile climate with flies. We're going to throw vexation on his joy so that it loses color. So basically, Iago is saying that we are going to break this news to Brabantio in a way that will make sure he's upset about it, because that's the whole idea. They need Brabantio to be upset about this to kind of get back at Othello. because Brabantio is a senator and he can make some trouble for Othello. This kind of reminds me of like if you ever have to ask your parents for something, and like something big, and so you spend like the week before like behaving really well and like being really polite and doing all your chores, kind of like buttering them up, you're trying to um, kind of set the stage to get the response you want. That's kind of what Iago's doing, but the opposite. He wants to make this seem as bad as possible, kind of set the stage. First of all, yelling up at the in the middle of the night, and then um, he's going to talk about this in a way that makes it seem as bad as possible. So that's what they do. They yell up at Brabantio, wake him up in the middle of the night. Um, and start yelling up at him, thieves, thieves. So that's how they're phrasing it, is that there are thieves who have come to steal your daughter. So obviously that shows it as a bad thing. But some more. So again, this language of you've been robbed, right? So instead of talking about a marriage, it's talking about a robbery. So that word choice is important there. And then we get into some other kind of language they're using to talk about this. I would say there's two types of imagery that you probably want to mark. There is this animalistic imagery, and then this black and white imagery. And there's reasons for that. So Iago is the one who's really doing this. And he says, an old black ram is tupping your white ewe, yelling up at her father, saying that. And so he's comparing them to, sheep, a ram, and a ewe. And that's to make what they're doing seem bad, seem gross, even though they're married. They're getting married. Tupping means exactly what you think it means. So he's describing this as an animalistic act rather than what it actually is, which is just them being married. And then he definitely wants to emphasize the um, the way that they are opposites. He's emphasizing old black ram, so the color and the age, and then a white ewe, and like a ewe kind of being like a young female sheep. So the opposites, old and black, and then a young white. And wants that contrast there to make it seem as jarring as possible, of obviously also referring to their race. So Brabantio, he hears this, and at first he's like, I don't know, what do you mean? And Iago goes on and tries to add to it, calling Othello a Barbary horse, saying that your nephews will neigh to you. So saying like your descendants will be animals. Again, obviously, we're getting into some racist ideas and racist language here, that Iago is using. He's not relying, he knows he can use Othello's race against him. He can't just use the fact that they eloped. So he has to start using all this racist language in order to anger Brabantio. So even if that's the race is not the reason Iago is upset, it is what a tool he's going to use against Othello to bring him down. And again, more animalistic language with this image, your daughter and the moor are now making the beast with two backs. A euphemism for sex, but calling it a beast. So Brabantio finally understands this, and he realizes that Desdemona is gone. And so he gathers all his people up, torches and pitchforks, kind of like that scene in Beauty and the Beast when that scene in Beauty and the Beast when Gaston goes and like gathers all the village to go get Belle back from the Beast. It's kind of very much like that. And Iago leaves because he's like, look, I can't be caught being against Othello. I have to still pretend I'm with Othello. So I'm going to leave. Rodrigo, you deal with this. And that is the end of scene one.